welcome back to Gay by Gay.
Yes, our third part in our trilogy about death.
What a great topic. Death
yes.
Week has been an adventure, talking to everybody.
The great
Death
finale.
Week. The great finale.
Don't
Abby.
let death make you weak, guys.
Is there a joke in there earlier?
Yeah, because it's Death Week. Don't let death make you weak.
Oh my god.
Oh, for God's sakes.
Anyways,
I'm
Abby.
warning you, you will hear so much puns.
So many bad puns. So many bad puns.
I'm your dad now.
Oh, God.
I'm not.
It's like the one time you called me Daddy Abby and I still haven't recovered.
Abacadaddy.
Abacadaddy. Aaliyah has called me Abacadaddy before.
Anyways, Abby, tell us your death story.
Which one?
Don't look at me like that.
This is why this is the grand finale, because it,
the first one.
Unfortunately, I do have a lot of experience with death. It has plagued me for my entire life, unfortunately. Plague, death.
Well, you haven't died yet.
No, but I've experienced a lot of it, and none of it was my own.
Well, you had an NDE, technically.
I did have an NDE. That's very... for anyone who doesn't know, near-death experience.
Oh, that was crazy.
Whoa, man.
Whoa.
Not only do you look like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo today, but you're talking like him.
It's all the marijuana from my house, man.
Oh, Jesus, child. No, don't say that. No. Unfortunately, I have been very much plagued by death for pretty much my entire life. I have experienced it in many different forms, from my dad being terminally ill from a very young age, to me having my own near-death experience. And, I was just not set up in a good way from the start, unfortunately. The death truck kind of ran me over.
The death truck?
The death truck ran me over.
What is it called? What is the car that carries caskets?
The hearse?
The hearse ran you over?
Yeah. It's kind of unfortunate, but that's kind of the case. So right away, I had a near-death experience when I was very, very young. And when I say very young, I mean from the time I was about 4 or 5. That's a whole other topic for a whole other day.
Different story time?
Different story time. Because I could talk about that story for like half an hour on its own and all of the implications from that story. But long story short, had a near-death experience. I wasn't in an accident or anything like that. I was a very, very...
You're just like...
I was a very sick kid.
Yeah.
So, again, long story short, when I was younger, had a major eating disorder. Again, we'll kind of discuss that on another day, but it was bad enough at one point that my mom took me to a pediatrician. And my pediatrician took one look at me, and he actually picked me up and ran me over to the intensive care unit in the other hospital building. He literally just ran with me out the door, left, his office and everything wide open, and just took me himself.
He stole you.
Took me to the hospital. That's how serious it was. And basically, this whole thing culminated with the doctors looking at my mom and literally handing her a pamphlet on children's caskets. That's how close the near-death experience was. They basically told her, be ready for this weekend because you will be burying your child. Yeah. She's not going to make it.
Yeah.
And at one point, my mom had been crying, and I guess, again, I don't really remember any of this because, I have a lot of blocked memories from trauma. Yeah. But one thing that my mom has told me, and it haunts her to this day, and I'm horrified that I did this to her, but again, I was like 4 or 5 at the time. I guess she had been sobbing because obviously she was upset. She thought she was losing her,
youngest
baby.
daughter.
Yeah. I guess at one point I had looked up at her, I had patted her on the cheek, and I said, it's okay, Mommy. Don't be worried. If I have to die, I understand it's my time to go, and I'm okay with it. At 4. This horrified her.
Yeah. Man.
So, that was my near-death experience. Again, I was probably, the doctors had said, within 48 hours I would be dead. Yeah. Bounced back from it because this is actually where my want to be a vet came from. My mom had tricked me. She got me this little stuffed dog, and she told me that this stuffed dog was dying. It sounds dark, but wait, okay? She told me that this little stuffed dog was dying, and of course, with me wanting to be a vet, I was horrified, and I was like, well, I want to make it better. And my mom had told me the only way to make this little stuffed dog better was to eat, because the stuffed dog couldn't eat, right? Yeah. It's a stuffy. And she was like, see, Abby, he can't eat. So you need to eat so that he will get better. And literally, my love for animals was so strong that I started eating again.
Yeah.
But actually, the eating disorder was bad enough that I had actually lost my swallow reflex. Oh. So I could not drink fluids. I could not.
You forgot how to swallow and everything?
I could not swallow. Yeah. It was something I physically could not do anymore because my body forgot how to do it. That's how serious it was. So regardless, I struggle talking about this subject a little bit. But when I say that death has plagued me, I really do mean that because some people may believe this, some people won't believe this. But my mom's side of the family, this is a hard topic to talk about. Judgment.
No pressure, Abby.
No pressure whatsoever. No, my mom's side of the family is psychically inclined. That sounds...
Good wording, man. Good wording.
Sounds horrifying. Basically what I mean is my mom's side of the family and a lot of the women in my family are spiritually sensitive.
Yeah.
Phrase it to you that way. Layman's terms, psychic.
Yeah.
I hate using that term because that is not really the case. But after my near-death experience,
Your near-death experience? Your dear-death experience.
My near-death experience. It was something that I had been inclined to before because, again, it ran in my mom's side of the family. And, she actually has premonitions and such. Mm-hmm. So I would not call her a psychic medium by any standard because that's a whole other topic for a whole other day.
Yeah.
But I had already been kind of showing signs. It completely missed my sister, went right over her head. She has no spiritual sensitivity. She doesn't even have any emotional sensitivity.
She doesn't have a soul.
But regardless, she has no spiritual sensitivity. I got hit with the train load of it instead. Yeah. So I was already kind of spiritually sensitive at that point. After my near-death experience, it exploded for me to the point that I guess I had woken up, and at one point I looked at my mom and I had asked her who the lady in the room was, and she goes, my daughter's literally on the verge of death. Like, she's going banana cuckoo. She's seeing some old lady in her hospital room. Little did I know, I was kind of looking at this woman and I said, Mom, she's just standing near the foot of the bed. She's kind of short. She's really super wrinkly. She's super old. I'm 4. I had no filter.
Really super wrinkly.
She's really super wrinkly. She's really super old. She's got short, white, kind of curly hair. And little did I know, I had described my dad's grandmother. Yeah. And this was just the lady I saw standing at the foot of the bed. And, my mom was like, what the heck? Abby's never seen a picture of this woman. Yeah. There would be no reason for Abby at 4 years old to know who this woman is. So when I say that death has plagued me, I very much mean that because after my near-death experience, it's something where a lot of people say that kids are already more spiritually sensitive. Animals are more spiritually sensitive. Mm-hmm. And, of course, anyone who kind of has it in a hereditary line is often more spiritually sensitive. But after a near-death experience, there are people who come back and say, once you've kind of had one foot on the other side, that kind of doorway is always open to some extent because you've been there and come back. This combination of me being extremely young, me having a hereditary, sensitivity to it, and me basically having one foot in the grave for a while and bouncing back from it, caused things to spin wildly out of control for me for quite a while. And, this is more about death. At some point, I will get more into kind of my experience with my abilities. Mm-hmm. But it was one of those things where, for me, growing up, even before my dad died, it was nothing for me to get a lot of spirits visiting me. Yeah. And again, some of you might be thinking I'm batshit crazy, but Aaliyah and Charlie can actually vouch for me. I've scared them enough times that I think that there's probably no doubt left in either of you two.
No, it's a fact of life.
It's a fact of life. It's a fact of life. But no, it was nothing for me, unfortunately, because things exploded so quickly. And I was so sensitive to it. I often kind of refer to myself as a bit of a lighthouse in the darkness, where in some cases I just draw things to me. But being so young, I could not control it. And that meant that I saw a lot of things that I probably should not have seen at a young age. It was nothing for me to see car crash victims after they had died. Oh. It was nothing for me to see murder victims after they had died. I saw a lot of very horrific things.
So basically, you were the child in the horror movies.
I was the child in the horror movies. I see dead people. Unfortunately, it was very true. So I saw a lot of really traumatizing shit. Yeah. So, there's nothing quite like seeing a car crash victim where their arms and legs are backwards.
Yeah.
And they're bleeding all over the place. It's horrifying at 6 years old.
If that's like kind of normalized in your life from such a young age, then
yeah, unfortunately, very much so. So for me, and then of course Dad got sick.
Yeah.
So even before that, my grandfather died when I was very young. And this is on my mom's side. So my maternal grandfather died when I was very young. My maternal grandmother had died when I was very young. And then, of course, I've had many, many pets over the years who have passed on. And then, of course, there was the whole issue with my dad.
Yeah.
From a very young age, I watched him slowly go downhill farther and farther and farther until eventually his brain cancer killed him.
Yeah.
So, of course, even after he had passed, you know, death was just a fact of life that I grew up with, very much so. Like, it was constantly surrounding me. Even if it wasn't my own dad.
It was something else.
It was something else. It was a stranger coming to me out of the middle of nowhere, you know, asking for their last words to be heard by somebody. Yeah. And, you know, there's nothing like waking up in the middle of the night to see a bloody body leaning over you in the bed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so a lot of trauma came from that. Yeah. So I think for me, I have a very different view of death just because as I said, I kind of had one foot in the grave at one point.
A lot about it.
And I've seen a lot of it, unfortunately.
Do you think because you had so much death around you when you were a kid, do you view death as somehow suffocating?
Believe it or not, you would think that because I have seen so much death that I would be more comfortable with it, but the exact opposite is true. I am so much more uncomfortable with the idea of death because of it. I have seen many different victims of many different things, and each one more horrible than the last, and I saw what happened to my own dad, and just this idea of death itself is terrifying. It's not that I don't know what's on the other side, because in fact, I know better than most people what's on the other side. What I am very it's a bit of a paradox in some ways.
Yeah.
I know what's kind of on the other side, but of course, you know, we always talk about ghosts and everything, where it's like, oh, they're still here. The way I can think about explaining this is everything exists on different planes, from my understanding, where there's kind of our plane that we survive on, there's the plane after you guys die, and then there's kind of that, there's that beyond the beyond, where, you know, it's like, oh, they've crossed over, they've gone into the light. Like, you hear phrases like that all the time, and it does kind of work that way, where it's moving on to the next layer. For me, because I have kind of peeked behind the curtain a little bit, it's harder for me because death is kind of horrifying, because I know what happens immediately afterwards, but I don't know what's beyond the light. But because I'm so familiar with all other aspects of death, it's terrifying to me. The one thing that I don't know is so much more terrifying to me because I know the rest of it. Does that make sense?
You mean you've been backstage, but you haven't been in the sound booth?
Yeah, great analogy there. Yes. So yeah, it's kind of one of those things. I feel like I should be more comfortable, but if anything, I'm even less comfortable with the idea of death.
Are you scared of dying? Personally?
Tough question. I don't think I am afraid of dying per se. I think I am afraid of everyone I will be leaving behind.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
And I think, much like you two, I'm afraid of the act itself in some ways. I think for me, it's not actually dying, it's passing on, so to speak. You know what I mean? It's going beyond the beyond. I know what happens to spirits on the next level, but after that, the true unknown scares me because I know so much about everything else that one thing that I don't know is more terrifying to me than everything else.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like, kind of going back to how you see, like, people, a whole bunch of, like, dead people.
I see dead people!
I remember the very first time I ever found out about your ability, and you were, like, you were talking about it to, like, everyone, all of the girls, I'm pretty sure, at the cabin.
I had mentioned it, yeah.
And I just remember, it took me a while to, like, work up the courage to finally ask you, but I remember asking you if you've ever seen my grandpa.
Yep.
And you literally said exactly how he looks, and I don't think I've ever showed you a picture of him.
Nope.
And you're like, yeah, he was wearing sunglasses, and he looked like this, and I'm like...
To this day, I don't think I've ever seen a picture of him. I only know him from having seen him after he passed on.
That was scary, and I just remember, okay, yeah, she's for real. This is crazy.
It's a bit of a weird experience, I'm sure. I've never been on the receiving end of it, but I have seen many people's reactions when I accidentally let information slip.
I want...
We'll talk about all of this another time, but yeah, it's freaky.
I do love it, however, when you first tell people.
Yeah.
And I love this because I know I did it. The onslaught of just
questions.
Me.
But even, like, the stupidest questions imaginable.
Yeah, I get a lot of it.
It's just amazing. I
get a lot of it. But no, again, the idea of death, it doesn't freak me out. Again, the act of dying, I think, would freak anybody out just because it is often accompanied by pain and such. Yeah. But no, it's the beyond the beyond. It's the little bit that I don't know that scares me because I know so much.
What, in your personal opinion, would be the most ideal way to die?
Ideal way?
Like for you?
Yeah.
Quietly passing in a natural way that doesn't linger.
Yeah.
So, you know, I hate to say it, but in some weird ways, heart attack.
Yeah.
Horrifying for the few moments that you're alive, or brain aneurysm, where literally it's over before you even realize what's happening to some extent. That idea of a long, drawn-out death where you know what's happening and you're just inching closer to the inevitable, I don't like that.
Yeah.
And everyone who's ever talked to me knows my worst fear is dying in a plane crash.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I know that.
I do not like planes. I think if humans were meant to fly, we would have wings. And I say this as someone who is actually very well traveled, and I am still terrified of planes.
She's been to like Europe and all those places.
I've been to Europe. I've been to the States several times.
Did you not fly a plane before?
I have flown a plane before, yes. My mom and my uncle were both, my uncle still is a pilot. My mom had her pilot's license, but has obviously let it lapse after having children. But no, I have flown a plane before. My uncle let me take control of it. And I've flown loops, I've flown spirals, I've done dives, I have done
it's hilarious.
I have done touch and goes, like literally but I am terrified of planes.
Yeah. That's like me, like I drive
Again,
cars, but
I think it's more of a control thing than anything else. This idea of hurtling towards the ground and not being able to do anything except sit there and just let it happen.
Well, you being able to control it, I understand that.
That horrifies me. As I said, I don't want to be able to contemplate my death. And the thing with a plane crash, even more than a car crashes, you might see it for a few seconds, but maybe not even long enough to really process what's happening. With a plane crash, it's going to take you 8 to 10 minutes to finally hit the ground. For those 8 to 10 minutes, you're just sitting in a metal tube waiting for it to happen, and that horrifies me.
And you just know, you're just like, oh.
I hate it. I hate it. And, you know, you hear a lot of people who survive plane crashes describe it as, you know, like a roller coaster where you know what's happening, and it's just this horrifying, like, you know, the G-forces on your body and everything. It just horrifies me. I hate it.
That's a scary way to die, too.
Yeah, it's horrifying.
Oh.
It's horrifying. Because, again, there's no pain. And, you know, once you actually get, like, hit the ground and impact, it's over so fast because you're traveling so quickly that you really don't feel it. Because a lot of people who have been injured even in plane crashes say, oh, yeah, I didn't actually feel the impact, or I don't even remember the impact because it happened so fast. But it's just the horror of what's happening, knowing what's happening, and just having to sit there and accept it.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Well, there probably wouldn't be enough time for you to accept it.
Well, in 8 minutes, I mean, that's a long time to think about what's about to happen. I'm about to squash into the ground at 300 kilometers an hour, and I'm going to explode in a fiery ball of death.
If you knew you were going to die in, like, how would they say, 24 hours, what would you want to do?
Say goodbye to everyone I love.
Yeah.
That's it.
Would you tell us?
No.
Yeah.
I would not tell anyone that I was dying. Because I wouldn't want people to treat me differently. I would just want to spend my last day with the people that I love and just accept it.
Aw, that's so sweet.
You know, as I said, as much as the idea horrifies me, I think it's more leaving people behind that scares me.
Yeah.
Because I have experienced so much death, I have seen what it's done to the survivors, the people who are left behind, and dying is the easy part.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but it's very much true. Dying is the easy part because you don't feel that pain anymore. But the people who have to survive after you have to experience it. And I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate that idea. But no. Death, again, is scary, but ultimately, I don't think it's anything... As Charlie said at one point, it's very much that sort of like, there's only one for sure thing in life, and it's that you will live and you will die.
Yeah.
Period. Like, that's it.
I feel like it's barely even living, too, because people don't even get to live sometimes. Like, they're born and then they just die.
Life is the blink of an eye in comparison to the rest of the universe. And, you know, eventually, all good things must come to an end, even planets and such. You know, eventually stars explode and form black holes, and eventually galaxies get swallowed up. So ultimately, even if you could be immortal and live forever, eventually your planet's going to get sucked into a black hole. So eventually everything will die.
Yeah.
Isn't that a comforting thought?
So live your life how you want it, because guess what? We're going to die.
We're dying anyways,
We're all gonna
people.
die.
God
We're all
damn
going
it.
to die. We're all going to get sucked into a wormhole, and we will all suffocate, or we will go spiraling off into the sun.
Do you
Yes.
Do you think that if, like, say me or Leah, and you knew we were something was gonna happen to us, and it was like we were gonna die, do you think you would stop it from happening?
Stop it maybe, but don't tell me if you can't stop it.
More moral question for any psychic medium: would you stop it?
Like, say if it was more of a
If I knew that
like it wasn't their time yet.
If I knew that I could do something to change the outcome, yes, I would do something about it. But as a psychic medium, there are just times that you get this sensation that it is inevitable.
Yeah.
Such as, the sensation of, my dad passing.
Like fate.
There is nothing I could have done, and so why would I have tried to do anything at all?
Yeah.
Although, if I knew, for example, I had that sensation or I had a premonition, Charlie's going to get hit by a car today, I would call you and be like, Charlie, do not leave your house today.
Yeah.
I don't care. Don't question me. Don't say anything. Just don't leave your house today.
Final
Period.
destination it.
Yep.
Yeah, literally.
Yep. And I hate to say that because it's I'm not God. It is not my place to step in and change things. However, if I've said this before, the people don't take advice from me, please. I've told many of my students before, cheating is not good. But if you're handed a golden opportunity to cheat, are you stupid for taking the opportunity, or are you stupid for ignoring the opportunity that's been handed to you on a silver platter to get a better mark?
Can I ask a complicated question?
Go for it.
So, because we thought, like, oh yeah, if it's like fate, you should let it happen, right?
Yeah.
But if you knew that it wasn't, do you think that it would have been fate for you to know that it wasn't? Do you know what I mean?
It's a bit of a paradox, but I do know where it's like, were you meant to have the premonition, and were you meant to get in the way of it
Just
happening?
spicing up life a little bit,
I don't think so, because the average person cannot do it. And for example, Charlie and I have kind of said before, we've played this sort of what if game where it goes, what if we hadn't met? What if this? What if that? What if life had ended up being very different?
Our relationship became very close to not meeting. Like, very close.
It's just that question of what would have happened if we hadn't met. And so I have to say, Aaliyah, what would have happened if we hadn't met? I wouldn't be in your life to be able to tell you whether or not something terrible was going to happen. So realistically, it's all just a twist of fate that I can do what I do, and that I met you and that we became as close as we are. So I think no, and this is why I say I'm not God. I'm not meant to get in the way. But sometimes human selfishness gets in the way, and if I knew that I had the ability to stop something, I probably would.
I don't think it's selfishness. I think it's more humanity than anything.
Yeah, but to me, things are supposed to work out a certain way, and just because I get to peek at what's supposed to happen next
you should control
doesn't mean that I should control it. That's playing God, and I don't like that.
No.
That's not what I want to do.
Yeah, that's really serious.
But at the same time, I also don't want to be comfortable with just sitting by and watching horrible things happen. It's a moral quandary, It's constantly weighing pros and cons. But no, just kind of in summary, death has plagued me for forever. It still plagues me to this day. Death itself does not scare me. Planes terrify me. And we all live to die. That's it.
Yay!
Take it gay by gay, guys, because you don't know when your last gay day is going to be.
I don't know when your last gay will be, guys. Come on, man.
All right, we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.